Hey there. Hopefully everybody's doing well. This is a live broadcast. So before I get into it, let's get disclaimers out of the way like we always do. This is a weekly live broadcast, pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central Time. This is where I am, and you can come in here and you can ask questions. We can talk about whatever we want to talk, whatever you want to talk about. Anything is fair game for the most part. Just keep it family friendly. Be polite with each other. Don't be hateful with anybody or anything like that. We can have differences of opinions. We can still be friends. We can have good, friendly debates, but don't start cussing, call anybody names or any of those kinds of things. We'll have to kick you out. But other than that, it's all fair game. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. And let's jump into it because we got some people here already. Looks like we got 9 people in here and 6 likes already. We haven't even started. So that's pretty good. We got Joy Guthrie here. Says hello. Joy from Western Oregon. Hello to you, Joy. Good to see you. And Chester Hickman from Grapeland, Texas. Good to see you. Chester also wants to know how the new baby rabbits are doing. Right now, they're doing fine. They haven't actually left the nest box at all yet. I haven't seen them out of the nest box at all, but they're doing fine. Felt around in there yesterday morning. I didn't disturb them this morning, but yesterday morning I was out there and felt around in there, and they're all still in there. They're all doing fine, all nice and warm, but haven't left the nest box, which I'm kind of surprised. Usually I start seeing them in and out of the nest box a little bit by this time. So probably any day now they'll be moving around a little bit more. Teresa Wiggins Gallery, there we go, says, hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm doing well. Hopefully you are too. And then goes on to say, I'm so happy. After my first hatch was a complete bust with a 0 hatch rate, my second one went great. A total of 26 so far. Well, that is fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Congratulations on that. It's always good whenever you can follow up like a failure of some kind with a big success. So well done. My wife just got home. I was saying my dog is awfully excited. So because my wife just got home from work, he's always excited when she gets home. Buck Reynolds says, hello, everyone. I remember this week. Hope everyone is doing well. You remember this week. What is... Oh, you mean you remembered to show up this week, I think is what you're saying. Well, hey, we're glad you remembered. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining. I was trying to think, what is this week? What do you mean you remember this week? What happened this week? Jim and Mike says hi to all. Hello to you. Don, good evening from South Central Illinois, dropping to say hi. Can't stay, so I'll catch the replay later. Well, have a good evening, and thanks for stopping by, even if it is for just a minute. Hopefully you're doing well. David Lister says, hey, Chris, our New Zealand doe hatched several of her Cadbury eggs this evening. No count yet, but her daughter, JJ, Jessica Jr., should follow up within the next 24 hours. Well, awesome. Congratulations on that. Hopefully you have some nice big litters. Teresa says, Chris, do you use a portable supply unit for when the power goes out? I don't. We don't really have power outages all that often. I assume what you're talking about is like for the incubator itself. We don't have power outages very often. When we do, they usually don't last that long, just a day, or not even a day. I mean, just an hour maybe or something like that usually. So it's not a big concern for me. Your eggs they'll be fine for several hours, honestly, with the power out, as long as they're not like out in the freezing cold. They'll be fine for several hours with the power out. And, if it gets bad enough to where the power's out for days, well, I got bigger problems than worrying about my hatch rate, probably. That's a big storm, and that's a big problem, probably. So, no, I don't really do that. I don't mess with it. I do have an inverter I could hook up to a battery and run things if I wanted to, but I just don't mess with it. Steven says, this man is a national treasure, saying hi from Wagner, Oklahoma. Are you talking about me? Well, thank you. It's a very kind comment. I don't know if I would call myself that, but, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. Homestead Matters says, happy Friday Eve from Eugene, Oregon. Hope everyone is doing well. I am. Hopefully you are too. George Kaiser says hello to everyone. Hello to you. Andy from Southwest Michigan says, hope everybody is well. Well, hopefully you are too. Hey, there's Verna. She just made it. Says, hey, Chris, 10th like. Thanks, Verna. I appreciate that. Joe Sandy's here, says, hello, everyone. Glad to catch the live tonight. Hey, we're glad you're here, too. We got 23 people in here now, so we need some chat to start going here so I can respond. I'm about at the end of it. Homestead Matters says, a man had our first power outage while incubating. First time I had to set up the generator while the husband was at work. Thank you, YouTube. Hoping the quick drop in temp wasn't too bad. Now, you'll probably be okay. You know, you'll probably be just fine with that. Hang on a second here. You know, the quail, I mean, yeah, you want to keep consistent temperatures as much as you can, but you know, even though like if a hen is incubating eggs, they don't sit on them 24 hours a day the entire time. They'll get up and go, you know, get drink, get something to eat or something like that, and leave the eggs a little bit uncovered. And you know, there's a drop in temperature. It's pretty normal. In fact, some eggs when you incubate them, not necessarily quail eggs, but some eggs when you incubate them, you do want to temporarily drop the temperature from time to time because it improves the hatch rate with them. So don't stress about that too much. They should be okay. I wouldn't worry about it. As long as, like I said, it wasn't like a drop down to like 32 degrees or something like that, you should be okay. Verna says, I thought you were not going live tonight. Did I post something to say I wasn't going live tonight? I think was it last week or the week before? It was Halloween. Halloween, I couldn't make it. That wasn't last week. That was a week before, wasn't it? I don't remember. But no, I made it tonight. Should make it next week too, as far as I know. It is deer season. I didn't get a video out this week because it's deer season right now. I did a lot of bow hunting, crossbow, because I'm no good with a regular bow, but a crossbow I can shoot things with. So I did a lot of hunting over the weekend, just got tied up with things and just could not get a video put out because by the time I got done hunting on Sunday, I had to come home and start bundling up brush to get out to the curb because the trash comes on Wednesday and I got to work during the week. And I just got overwhelmed with too many things to do. Hopefully this weekend won't be so bad. But this weekend starts rifle season, so I'm going to be out hunting again. If I don't get one Saturday, I'll be out hunting Sunday. But I'll try to work a video out for you guys, and I should be back next week. Teresa says, I'm more worried about losing power in the brooder. Oh, well, yeah, that could be a concern for sure. But as long as it's not out for, you know, hours and hours and hours, they're probably going to be okay. I did have power go out in my brooder. It was the extension cord. It rained one night, and these birds were probably week and a half old, somewhere right around in there. And I went out, and there was like, you know, this is 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning. It's still dark out. I went out to go take care of all the animals, and I go out to the shed, and I'm like, oh, the heat lamp's not on. Open it up, and power was out. And it took me a minute to troubleshoot and figure out what it was. There was a little bit of a hole in my extension cord that went out there, so when it rained, water got in there, tripped my ground fault. So I ended up having to switch the extension cord out with a good one, getting it all plugged in and turned on, got the heat lamp going. But yeah, the birds were all huddled together looking pretty sickly. But as soon as I got the heat lamps going, it didn't take very long at all, just a few minutes. They're up and running around again, and they're okay. So they all made it. I didn't lose any of them. So don't stress too much about it as long as it's not. It was probably in the mid 40s, you know, something like that, which is pretty chilly for a week and a half old birds. They wouldn't have made it, you know, very much longer probably, but they did make it. And I don't know how long it was out. It was probably out for hours. Steven says, Chris, can we get some merch? Maybe a 3x5 slightly redneck flag. I need to work on that. I keep thinking about it, and I know you guys have asked for it sometimes. And I don't know. Call me lazy or something. I don't know. I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do to come up with something. Let me make a note of that I need to come up with some merch for you guys. So, okay. All right, there we go. Darren says, love your videos. Very educational. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see. 340 Quail Farms here. Good to see you. Says, hey, everybody. Mount Dora, Florida, checking in. Thanks for joining tonight. I appreciate that. Verna says, that's what I thought you were doing tonight. LOL, hunting. Oh, yeah. I can't hunt much during the week because I got to work. And you know, it gets dark by like 5:30 now with the time change and all. So by the time I get home from work, there's just no time. I mean, where I hunt it's a good 30-minute drive at least. So I just can't do it. I just can't work it out during the week after work. It just doesn't work. I am going to probably take off next Friday. I had Monday planned off. I was going to take Monday off, and so I could get 3 days during rifle season because I'm much better with a rifle than I am with the bow. Plus, the deer are really starting to move right now. So, I mean, rifle season is usually my most successful, and it is always my most successful season. In fact, I have yet to shoot a deer with my crossbow. Well, I take that back. I shot one deer with the crossbow, and I thought it was a pretty good shot. Seemed like it when I let the arrow fly. The deer buckled like I got him pretty good. Walked off into the woods. I never found him. Felt terrible. It's the worst feeling in the world. Rather just completely miss than wound a deer and not know what happened to it and all that. But anyway, I digress. So I had Monday planned off, but it's supposed to be raining all day Monday. So I'm going to switch that to the following Friday, take a 3-day weekend there. If I don't get one, this weekend. So hopefully I do. Hopefully I get one on Saturday and I can just be done, because we just ate the last roast from last year's deer last week. All right. Let's jump back into it. We got Teresa Wiggins here, says we have a power outage that lasts a few hours, at least a couple of times a year. I mean, we get them every once in a while, but usually not unless there's like a big storm going through or something like that. And even then it's rare that it's off for more than an hour. Used to be that way. I mean, the infrastructure has been built up over the years and it's finally gotten to a point where it's pretty good now. Caesar says, hello, Chris and everyone. Hello to you. Good to see you. All right, where are we at here? Teresa says, I heard some gunshots earlier. Don't know when hunting season starts. Maybe they were practicing. It could be. I don't know where you're located, what state. I mean, in Missouri, it's bow season. It's been bow season since like September, but I've only been out like for the last couple of weeks, really, because it's been so hot that I don't want to, you can't wear bug spray when you're out deer hunting, and I don't want to get covered in ticks. So it finally got cool enough to get out there. Anyway, but I don't know where your rifle season is or when your deer season is, but in Missouri, rifle starts on Saturday and it runs for 10 days, I think it is. Maybe it's 11. But so you don't have very much time. I mean, it's 2 weekends basically, and if you take a day off. So yeah, probably sighting in their rifles if it was just, if it was a couple of shots. You don't usually hear, usually deer hunting and sighting in rifles is a little bit different, because sighting in rifles, you hear a bang, bang, maybe 2 or 3 times. Deer hunting is usually just one shot, unless you get some guy, I've heard him out there hunting though, bang, 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 bang. I'm like, good grief, man. Aim, learn to aim. I very seldom ever, if ever, shoot more than one shot. In fact, I loaded up a box of 30-06 ammo, hand loaded it. Like 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't gone through that box yet, because usually I only shoot one shot a year through that rifle, unless I take it out to the range. And if I take it out to the range, I usually just buy store-bought ammo for it. But anyway, David Lister says, I have an NR360 full of 44 jumbo whites. Lockdown next week. Freezer will be full soon. Awesome. What's the NR360? Is that Nurturite 360? Is that what that is? Awesome. Well, good luck on your hatch. I hope it goes very well. There's Boris, says, hello, Chris. Hey, Boris. Good to see you. Let's see. You're in West Virginia, Teresa. Well, I can look that up real quick. Let's see. West Virginia deer season 2024 is November 25th to December 8th is, well, that looks like, I don't know which hunting season that is. Let me check real quick. I can probably see it. So let's see. Deer, there's an antlerless split season. Okay, so there's an antlerless season, and then there's a firearm season is November 25th to December 8th. And that's got an asterisk by it. I don't know what your rules are, but I'm not going to look up the rest of it. You can look that up. That's good enough. Nobody else cares probably. So, so yeah, it's coming up. You're looking at, the 28th is going to be next. That's Thanksgiving Day. It opens Thanksgiving Day. What a terrible time to open deer season. But anyway, Amy B is here. Good to see you. Amy B says, I had 3 littles hatched 2 days ago. Well, awesome. Hopefully, oh wait, there's more. Oh, wait, no, that's a different comment. I'll get to that in a second, though. You said you had 3 little hatched 3 days ago, so 3 birds hatched 3 days ago. I don't know how many eggs you set, or 2 days ago you said. I don't know how many eggs you set, so I don't know how good of a hatch rate that is. I'm guessing probably more than 3. But congratulations on those 3 2 days ago. There's still a chance that you may get some more to hatch, so I'd give them another at least day or 2 if you still have eggs that are unhatched. And, probably 2 more days, and then call it at that point. Amy says 1 shot deer, dead deer, 2 shot, maybe dead deer, 3 shot deer running scared. Yeah, indeed. And I've heard those like that where they're just going after them. Actually, a couple of years ago, my cousin, where we hunt is my uncle's property. Nobody lives on it, but it's his property. And I was sitting in a blind. Oh, I don't know. He was in his tree stand south of me, and I was in a blind. We're probably half mile between us, maybe something like that, maybe a little more. And all of a sudden I hear bang, and it's coming from his tree stand. I mean, I can tell it's close. And I hear bang, bang, bang. I'm like, what the heck? I text him like, man, what is it? Zombie apocalypse or something? He had a group of feral hogs come out, and he shot like 5 of them. But I thought he was shooting at a deer like that. Oh, look at that. We got a $2, is that Canadian? $2 Canadian super chat from Darren. Thank you very much, Darren. I appreciate that. I don't know what CA means. I guess I'm guessing Canadian. I don't really know. Let's see. Darren says, oh, wait. Yeah, that's right. Darren says, question, have some cages like Katernik's Corner almost made 4 of them for probably indoors. Would like to use your system outside because we have cold winters. What do you think? I'm not sure. Like, I'm having a hard time trying to figure this out. If you're saying you want to build a system like mine, like a cages like mine to use outdoors, yeah, this should work just fine, no problem. I know you think we probably don't get cold. We do. We get plenty cold. We don't stay cold as long, and we probably don't get quite as cold as you do, but we get down below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Fairly common. I mean, it's not uncommon at all. And I've never had any issues with the birds. And the hardest part is just keeping water from freezing. I use heated water so that doesn't freeze. So they'll do just fine as long as they can get out of the wind and out of the weather. That's what the closed-in section of my coop is for. Then they're fine. They handle the cold really, really well. I'm guessing that's what you were asking. I'm not sure if I got that question exactly right or not. Andy says, with my Pharaoh quail, once in a while I get a pure white egg. Is this maybe a throwback to Celadons or something else? It could be that they're out of toner, but no, I'm kidding. It's a pretty normal thing. Yeah, that's what Verna's saying too. She says it's because someone's printer went out. At least that's the way we say it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a normal thing. I mean, I couldn't tell you the exact reason it happens, but it happens. It's not any indication of anything. It's just occasionally you're going to get a white egg or no pattern on an egg. It's just normal. So, let's see. Chris Derry Roselrod says, hi. Hello to you too. Good to see you. Yeah, we got a bunch of people saying toner low on the printer. Teresa says, now I'm picturing zombie hogs running people down. That would be a scary thing, wouldn't it? Yeah. I didn't know what was going on, honestly, but yeah, it was the hogs that came out. We've shot several feral hogs out there. It seems like I shot one with a pistol last year. We were out metal detecting, and we ran across a big group of them, and I got one of them. We tried to thin them out because they're incredibly destructive. They're a mess. They're not supposed to be there. They're an invasive thing. But it seems like for a couple of years, we won't see many. And then for a couple of years, I mean, they're just everywhere. We see them all the time. Amy says that usually a female's paint box will take a day off. Verna says, didn't you have a winter blowout? Me? No, I don't remember any recently. I mean, we've had them before, but not any kind of recently. You're talking about the power going out? Is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure if I'm answering. I don't remember any recently. No, I may have gotten that. I may have interpreted that wrong. Homestead Matters says to Amy, haha, using the term paint box for now on. George says, one of my quail laid another Cadbury cream-sized egg. I'm keeping it this time to hatch it, see how big it is compared to the other hatching, if it's fertile. Yeah, chances are it probably won't hatch. It's probably a double yolk egg. Chances are it probably won't hatch. But, hey, try anyway. What's the hurt, right? Verna says, Chris, didn't you have an Arctic blast last year? Probably. Yeah, I mean, we get them. It's pretty common. Once a year at least. In the wintertime, we get pretty cold. I don't know if we got down below 0 last year or not, but yeah, we get pretty cold winter time. It just doesn't usually last for months on end or anything. It's like we get a really cold week and then we're back up in the 40s or something for a while. Homestead Matters says, be careful to George, be careful that may be a double yoker and shouldn't be incubated. Well, I mean, I don't know if there's any reason it shouldn't be incubated necessarily. It's just it probably won't hatch, or you may end up with like some deformities, some chicks you have to call and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess looking at it that way, if you really don't want to have to deal with that, then maybe you shouldn't try to incubate it, but it should be okay. So you tell me I'll get twins, Homestead Matters? That's George. Probably not, but who knows? 340 Quail says, question, is there some kind of reference or guide for beginners that displays what quail color combinations are needed to produce certain colors? I'm sure there is. I don't know of it right offhand. I don't really get into all the different colors and things like that. It's not my area of expertise. You might check with Zach. Also, Confetti Quail, I believe, is like a genetics expert. I mean, she knows a lot of, she's pretty good at that kind of stuff. So she might be a good resource for you as well. I don't know how you contact her. I just was on let me see if I can find that real quick. I think it's Confetti Quail. Yeah, Confetti Quail Farm, I believe. Maine's Confetti Quail Farm. That's what I'm thinking of. Allie is her name. So she's been on Katernick's Corner once or twice. I remember her talking about genetics. She seemed like she really knew what she was talking about. So that may be a good resource to go to as well. I don't really know because it's just not my deal, unfortunately. Homestead Matters says twin embryos don't have enough space to grow well, so they rarely make it to hatch. And if so, they don't usually survive. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's true. Rarely make it to hatch. Rarely, I agree. That's true. But I mean, you could try if you wanted to. Just be prepared. That's probably not going to work out very well. So you may think of that as being cruel. I don't know. Maybe it is. But you're taking a chance. Joe Sandy says, my quail have been acting strange last week or so. Very flighty. Egg production dropped by half last night. They got a timed 16-hour of light consistently, and I noticed the one rooster's eye, and then it just stops. So, has been pecked. So, yeah, sounds like they got like kind of aggressive with each other for whatever reason. I'm not sure. But, they go through phases where they do things like that, and then they just go back to normal. So I don't know if there's anything to really necessarily do or worry about. A lot of times I think if you try to get in there and mess with them, I mean, I've got a bird that had one eye, just got pecked not too long ago, but it's recovered now. It didn't get the eye pecked out. It's recovered now and it's fine. No problems. Egg production's back up. So, I mean, it's just weird. Every once in a while, they just go psychotic and do stuff, and then they calm back down and they're fine. Chester wants to know, have you ever raised turkeys? And if so, what breeds? No, I have not raised turkeys. I've thought about it before, but I've just never done it. My grandmother had turkeys when I was a kid. And I remember, I couldn't tell you what breed they were because this was a long time ago. But I remember being out in the middle of them and they were just flogging me. And it was like, I was probably like 6 years old. I mean, it was a pretty scary thing at the time. Verna says, my Shire has a list on colors. Yeah, they have a list on colors, but does it tell you like what birds you need to breed together and what colors you're going to get from those birds and that kind of stuff? I don't know if it does or not. I think that's more like what he was asking. George Kaiser says, colors seem to skip a generation for me. I seem to get white every second generation, then orange birds every other generation. Interesting. I don't know. Amy B says, I was thinking about turkeys a few years ago. Oh, no, I was thinking about a few turkeys next year. Sorry, I got distracted by something. And yeah, I've thought about getting a turkey. I mean, I live in town, so I have to be real careful with what I do. I definitely couldn't have a tom. First time that thing gobbled, boy, I'd have somebody calling the animal control on me, and then it'd be a problem. But I've thought about picking up a hen turkey or something and raising it, like for Thanksgiving or something like that. But I just never have done it. Amy says psychotic is the right word. Yeah, indeed. Okay, so Verna says in some of those he tells about how he got them. Okay, so there you go. That may be a good resource for you. There's a YouTube link there for you. I guess you probably got that. Joe Sandy says psychotic is right. I only have one rooster, and besides the pecked eye tonight, I noticed his back feathers have been pulled out. He's looking like an overmated hen. Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe they got a little sick of him. So I told him to back off. Feathers, like on his back, have been pulled out. There may be some molting going on. That's not uncommon this time of year. It seems like I've got birds that are molting right now too. And I don't know why they pick, like going into wintertime to molt. Seems like a terrible time, but they do that, and they'll lose feathers on their back. That's pretty common. But you may have some birds that are just beating each other up. Hopefully, most of the time they just get over it, and it's not that big a deal. Amy says sometimes hens will get aggressive with jerk roosters. Sometimes hens will get aggressive for no reason at all. They just, for some reason, it seems like when I have aggression issues, it's usually the hens that are doing it, and for no reason really. Verna says you might have another male in there. I guess it's possible, but I don't know that that's it. Says no, Verna, not unless roos lay eggs. Yeah. Well, it is 2024, right? I mean, I'm just kidding. They don't. They never will. All right. Oh, there's another comment. I'll say we're at the end of the comments, but that's okay. David Lister says, with the price of turkey this year, we're thinking of using one of our Cornish cross. Has the price of turkey gone up? Because I just saw it. We've got a grocery store here that just advertised 99 cents a pound for turkey. That's pretty cheap. I've got a turkey in the freezer already, so I don't have to worry about it. But I haven't checked the price. Teresa says, I love chicken, but not a fan of turkey. Oh, I love turkey. Verna says, I got one really cheap yesterday. Yeah. So what is it about turkey that you don't like? I hear a lot of people say they don't really like turkey because it turns out dry. If you brine it and then cook it breast side down, stuff a lot of butter up in there in the cavity and maybe some under the skin on the breast, it's not dry. It turns out pretty good. But yeah, I've seen some pretty good deals going on turkey. It seemed like it was pretty cheap. I haven't checked the regular price to know what it is going for in grocery stores right now, so I couldn't speak to that. But George says, love turkey legs, a meal in itself. Yeah, absolutely. Verna says, I use an oven bag and it's never dry. Yeah, I don't use an oven bag, but I do cook it breast side down. Now the breast doesn't brown up real nice, but man, it turns out good. I cook a pretty good turkey. I've had plenty of people tell me that. So it's not just bragging. I mean, I do cook a pretty good turkey. And I've got a video actually on a couple of videos from years ago that I did on how I cook turkey, or at least how I brine it anyway. I don't remember if I did the whole cooking video or not. And giblet gravy, one of my favorites. Love giblet gravy. Nobody ever makes it except for me. So it's unfortunate if I go to Thanksgiving, like at my family's house, like my cousin's house, for example, and she's making turkey, and she does a good job with the turkey, but she doesn't make giblet gravy, so I never get it. Teresa says, not sure I can eat it, especially with gravy, but I've only bought a turkey once. You might try it again. You never know. I'm one of those people, though, that even though I know I don't like things, I'll try them again every couple of years because my tastes change over time. Joe Sandy says, I feel like sometimes people tend to overcook poultry for fear of salmonella, then dries it out for sure. Yeah, that could be the case. Homestead Matters says, breast side down sounds interesting. Might look into it. Yeah, that's what I do. And I usually, when I stuff the turkey, I don't stuff it with like stuffing. I usually put like aromatics in. So like lemon and onion and celery and carrot, like a basic mirepoix kind of thing. Put that in the cavity. Or apples is a good one too. That does pretty well. Some apples and maybe some sage. Those are good things to put in too. But anyway, that's how I do it. Verna says, I used to make it, but since I am only cooking for myself, I don't need it. Yeah, that's a lot to cook for just one person. Joe Sandy says, Verna, I agree with the oven bag. Teresa says, I let other people cook the turkey. Yeah, the good thing about cooking a turkey is you have a great big turkey carcass left over that you can make stock out of. And turkey stock is pretty good. Oh, Verna says the police are outside again tonight. Wonder what's going on. I wouldn't know. Hopefully they're not after you. Berna says, I freeze dry leftovers. Turkey jerky is great. I bet it is. Amy says, stay away from the window, please, Verna. It's probably a good advice. Joe Sandy says, I stuff mine with the same things, Chris. Adds a lot of flavor. Yeah, absolutely. George says they're probably chasing the local blue-haired people, Verna. Maybe. Steven says, we need to see hunting video. That would be Teddy Roosevelt cool. Yeah, talking about my shirt, right? Maybe cool, but you'll never be Teddy Roosevelt riding a moose cool. So I've tried doing hunting videos before. It's incredibly hard when you try to self-film that stuff. It just never seems to work out. Like where I hunt, it's never like in the hunting shows where you see like, oh, there's a deer coming. Is he a good deer or not? Should I shoot at this deer? And then, you know, it takes a while and he works his way down and you get a shot at it. It's never like that at all. For me, it's always like, oh crap, there's a deer. Is he a good deer? Oh, he's gone. You know, you gotta think pretty, and trying to get the camera going and point it in the right direction and get, I mean, it's just incredibly hard to do. But yeah, I've tried. I'll see what I can do, but don't count on it. Verna says, George, when I walked 7 p.m. tonight, a homeless guy was sleeping on the bench. At 3 p.m., saw him and a woman doing a drug deal. Oh, that's probably why he's homeless. George Kaiser says, we moved out to Sydney due to so many homeless, Verna. We live 90 minutes outside now, semi-rural. Go there only when necessary. Yeah, it seems to be a problem everywhere. I mean, we've got a big problem with homeless here too. I don't know what the solution is. I wish I did. But it's there. Yeah, we get homeless people on a bunch of the corners just begging all the time. Some of them I'm sure are, you know, really in dire straits, and some of them I'm sure are probably just lazy and don't want to work. And some, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's far for me to judge. I wish I knew what the answer was to it. I don't, but it's a problem. Andy says, I believe Myshire Farm has a video on breeding pharaohs with wilds. When the chicks hatch, you can tell hens from roos by their colors. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much, pharaoh and wild is pretty much the same thing. So I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but I'm sure they have videos on all that stuff. George says, just watch my Shire video in the background. My oranges are in fact golds. Well, there you go. Ed says, what's up with the small grape-sized eggs? We picked them in the batch, and they're just fine. Definitely wouldn't try to hatch. We picked them in the batch, and they're just fine. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying there, but you're asking, I think, the question about like when you get those tiny little eggs like that. Yeah, it's just part of the egg laying process. Sometimes they lay a weird egg. It's going to be tiny. It's going to be great big. You're going to get eggs with no shell on them. You're going to get all kinds of weird little things that happen with eggs. It's just, it happens. I mean, it's just, they're not perfect every single time, and it's nothing to worry about. It's not an indication of anything. You're going to get more of those whenever the birds first start laying, or when they first start, like they take a break and then start back up again. That seems to be more common, but you'll get them from time to time anyway. It's just, it's nothing really to worry about. Buck says, I think he means rouge. Was that rouge? I don't know what that, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Verna says, Andy, pharaohs and Egyptians. Okay. And Amy says, I have golds and dark reds. Nice. Verna says, we call them fairy eggs to Ed. Usually beginner layers. Yeah, usually, but not always. I mean, sometimes I still get them. Amy says, one of my hatchlings is a tuxedo. No idea where it came from. Yeah, I mean, you will get those sometimes from, I don't get tuxedos necessarily, but I do get some that are more like a what is it, fab feet, like the loss of color in the breast. They don't have any, like the hens will have speckles and the roosters will be kind of whitish. I'll get those from time to time. David Lister says the answer is prayer and a loving heart and a coupon to a local cafe. Well, that could be it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I do try to pray for those people. But I kind of let God lead me whenever, it's like, do I give to him? Do I not give to him? I just kind of let God put that on my heart. If I feel that his tug on me, then I do give. And most of the time I don't, because I don't feel it. But we have a lot of resources. I mean, we have shelters. There's plenty of resources around here. If people wanted to get help, they could get help. We've got Salvation Army. We've got one locally called Water Gardens, which is a really good one. But the problem, I think, with all those is they have kind of regulations around, like you can't be drinking, you can't do drugs, you got to, it's like a hand up, not a hand out. And a lot of those people just don't want to deal with that, unfortunately. So anyway, Jose says, if you had to choose rabbit or quail, which one would you keep? I get this question fairly frequently. It's hard to say for sure, honestly. Probably quail, though. It's just easier to like bump the numbers up really quick if I needed to. And you get egg and meat production with them. So that's probably the one I would go with. But luckily I don't have to. I can do both. Steven says, what's your favorite 3 tomato strains to grow? For me, Brandy, Boy, Celebrity, and Big Boy. Yeah, those are all good ones. I agree. I grew heirlooms. I don't do hybrids. Nothing wrong with hybrids. I'm not saying you shouldn't grow them or anything like that. So my favorites are probably Mortgage Lifter Red and Amish Paste. Those are really my 2 go-tos. I don't know that I have a third one that I rotate out and try different things from year to year, but I haven't really found anything that I would consider necessarily my favorite tomato. Teresa says, saw a video, I think, from the Netherlands where they took cargo containers and made them into small apartments for students. Could work for the homeless. Yeah, it could for sure. I mean, it's an option. Where are you going to put them, though? I mean, somebody's got to have the land out there to do it. We had a couple of homeless people try to move in right behind the house here. If you guys have seen my backyard, my back lot where I keep, my animals and stuff like that, there's a tree line along the back of that. And then there's a ditch. And on the other side of that is old railroad property. There's no houses back there. So it's kind of open. And there was a clump of trees right there that had a pretty good growth up. So you couldn't really see through it necessarily. And a homeless couple had moved into that and kind of carved out a little area where they were living in it. Wasn't a big deal until, and this is probably why they're homeless, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, they're out there screaming and yelling at each other and cussing and arguing and fighting. Had to call the police on them once or twice because we got kids in the neighborhood. You can't be out there doing that stuff. So it became a problem. Eventually the city came and just brush hogged the whole place, and they moved on. Buck Reynolds says, I would hatch it and see if I could get a 2-headed quail. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Verna says, in our area, there isn't very many resources. Hard for them to get shelter. Yeah, well, we have, like I said, there are resources here. So I'm a little reluctant sometimes to just give money to them out on the street. We also get, there's also stories of people scamming where, they're standing out, especially down by like the interstate, right off the interstate on ramps and stuff. They'll stand down there begging and looking pretty raggedy and all this kind of stuff. Stand down there, every day, all day. And then they go get in a brand new truck and drive off, something like that. George says, I have a trans bird, totally looks like a male, white chest, but lays eggs and identifies as a female. Had her in the pen with the male for processing, but kept finding eggs, so saved her. Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes you do get females, like, sometimes there's doe deer that have antlers, it's not, they're still does, but they kind of have some of the traits of the other gender. Teresa says, I live near the Appalachian Trail, and we have some homeless camping out in the trail shelters. Yeah, we get homeless people to camp out in the parks, under the pavilions and all that kind of stuff. And I will say, they don't bother me when I go out there and like metal detecting or something like that. I've never had anybody bother me. They're always pretty friendly, pretty polite. And, a lot of the time I've talked to several of them, and a lot of times they're, they got plans, they got something they're working towards. They're just, kind of down on their luck right now. But those are not the same people I see standing out on the street corners with signs, saying, give me money. Verna says, I love Mortgage Lifter as well. Yep, that's a good one. I think it's a great one. Andy says, yep, my bad. Pharaohs and Egyptians. Hey, it's all good. I make worse mistakes than that. And a jack of all trades. There we go. It took me a minute to figure that out. It says my favorite heirloom is brandy wine. I think I've tried brandy wine before. It was okay. One I do not like that everybody just raves about is Cherokee Purple. They're not that great to me. I just don't care for them. It's really the flavor. I didn't have real good success growing them. I mean, they did okay, but not great. But I just didn't think they were that good of a tomato. Too bad. I'd like for them to be a great one. It's a good story behind them, but I just don't like them. Joe Sandy says, I've struggled with severe blight on my tomatoes the past 2 years. Me too, actually. Very discouraging. Has anybody tried spraying with baking soda or milk? I have not. It's if you can, catch it early, especially like, it usually starts on the lower leaves and stuff. Pinch those off. Pinch off the whole branch when you discover it, and you can usually kind of keep it at bay. But it takes a little bit of work. You got to do it. You got to go out there pretty much every day and try to stay on top of it. Fungicides, can kind of help with that. I usually just do my best to try to, snip off the affected parts of the tomato whenever it happens, and then hope for the best. And it didn't work out that well this year because I got lazy. I got tied up with other things, mostly the tree that fell, and didn't take care of them. Amy says yellow pear tomatoes are a low acid heirloom variety that are easy to pick. It looks like a bunch of light bulbs. Yeah, but how do they taste? I mean, I've tried a few of those kind of interesting tomatoes before, like those the ones at Baker Creek's always advertising the atomic, what do they call them? Atomic grape tomatoes or something like that. They look wild. I mean, they're crazy looking, but they weren't that good, so I just didn't grow them anymore. Berna says, Sandy, move the tomatoes to another area. That will help get rid of blight. I actually did move my tomatoes to another area and still had issues with blight. But yeah, I think what I'm going to do this year, and I'm not sure yet, next year anyway, I think I'm going to pull up the ground cover I have on it. It's that woven ground cover, and I think I'm going to use straw in those beds for mulch this year. I'll leave it all down in the walkways and stuff like that, try to keep the weeds down. But I think I may use just straw with compost and all those kinds of things too. But straw is the mulch on them this year, and see if that helps a little bit. Joe Sandy says, Verna, I don't have that option. Wish I did. Yeah, it makes it tough sometimes when you're working in small areas. My answer to most things is lots of organic matter. Dead leaves, compost, rabbit manure, all that stuff. Just pile it on there. Usually that fixes most things over time. Verna says, perhaps, Sandy, you just skip tomatoes this year, give the ground a rest to get rid of the blight. And that may be an option. George says, we grow tomatoes the size of baseballs up here, so creamy and delicious, and are blessed with good soil on our property. That is a good thing. David says, I never give cash, but sometimes coupons. I never have coupons, so occasionally I'll give cash to somebody, but not very often. Like I said, I just kind of rely. If God puts it on my heart and I feel like I really need to do this, I just trust that he's going to do that. And sometimes I feel that pull, sometimes I don't. Most of the time I don't. Joe Sandy says, I never knew a doe could have antlers, and I was raised with pet deer. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare, but it does happen from time to time. You see an antlered deer, or antlered doe. About once every 4 or 5 years, some kid out hunting shoots a buck that ends up being a doe. And it gets posted all over Facebook, and, the conservation departments, shares it. Verna says, I would offer something to eat or drink. Can't afford to give money. Yeah. I see. I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Jose says, I just started breeding rabbits again. I have a pair of California rabbits and am in search of a Tamuk pair. Any recipes you recommend? Pretty much anything that was chicken related, except for fried. I don't think they do well fried. They're too lean. To me, it just is not good. But anything like chicken casseroles, chicken, like stews, chicken, I don't know, chicken, you can just like roast them in I've done them in a bag, like a roasting bag with like carrots and celery and onion and stuff. And they turn out pretty good that way too. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways you can do it, but just think of them as like chicken, basically white meat chicken. Amy says, I'm in Ohio. West Virginia could be a goal. Oh, because Teresa's in West Virginia. Gotcha. I don't think I've ever been to West Virginia. Homestead Matters says, we had our best luck this year with the tomatoes that I ignored after setting the quail, or after getting the quail. Go figure. Sometimes it works that way. I've had really good luck with tomatoes for years, and then the last two, it's been pretty rough. Joe Sandy says, I diligently pick the lower leaves, just hasn't worked lately. Yeah, I feel you. I mean, I've had some of those issues too. I'm not sure what the exact answer is, but, if I figure it out, I'll let you know. Buck says, gypsy moths have been terrible here the last 2 years. Chickens are greatly reducing other pest damage on my fruit trees, though. Yeah, we don't have gypsy moths here. I've heard about them, and I've seen the stuff that they do, and we had a bad problem with Japanese beetles, but that seems to be, I don't know. I mean, I've set out traps for years for Japanese beetles, and they're all but non-existent now. I see a couple of them every once in a while, and whenever I start seeing them, I set out a trap for them, and it just catches them. They're gone. George says, does anybody here armpit their tomatoes for grafting? I don't. I have plenty of them started, so I don't worry about it. But Verna says, oh, that irks me, stupid YouTube glitched. Uh-oh. Sorry to hear that. Buck says, doesn't straw harbor fungus really well? I mean, it might. I don't know. But it's good organic matter that will feed the soil. It breaks down pretty quick, feeds the soil. My grandfather gardened for years, had fantastic results. Of course, he grew mostly hybrids, which are a little bit more resistant. And that could be another thing, too. Who was Joe Sandy, or Sandy's probably who's talking. You might just switch to some hybrids that are a little bit more resistant against that kind of stuff. I mean, if you're going to try to, I grow heirlooms because I like to save seeds, start from seed, that kind of thing. That's why I grow the heirlooms. But there's plenty of hybrids out there, and some of those were mentioned earlier. Better Boy, I think. Anyway, they're more resistant to blight, so you might get away with being able to grow those. In fact, I may do that for a year or two, just to let the blight kind of dissipate. Andy Rabbit says it just needs more rabbit manure. Well, maybe. It's not a bad idea. George says mulch works really well. What? Maybe that's for us in a warmer climate. Not sure how it does in really cold zones. Yeah, well, I'm not in a really cold zone, so good question. But yeah, mulch is a necessity. You got to put some kind of mulch down. Otherwise, you just get weed growth like crazy. And you have to water more too. Verna says, Sandy, try using a container for your tomatoes instead of the ground. I have not had good luck trying to grow like beefsteak tomatoes in containers. It just doesn't seem to be enough soil for them. They're pretty heavy feeders. It has never worked well for me. Now, cherry tomatoes and things like that for sure, but full size beefsteak tomatoes, I've never had good luck growing them in a container. Amy says, everyone gather in. Here's the cure for blight. There we go. Aspirin, plain old $1 a bottle aspirin. Start seeds in a solo cup with a hole in the bottom. Put a second cup under the first as a catch cup. I've done that, and that works just fine. And I've tried aspirin, and it didn't touch it. I didn't touch it at all. But maybe, I don't know. You could try it and see. Teresa says, how are you supposed to treat splay leg and the tiny button quail newborn? They're just too small and wiggly. Splay leg's a hard thing, and I have not raised button quail, so I can't speak to those necessarily, but it's a hard thing to fix in even Coturnix quail. I mean, if you catch it early, you get their legs underneath them, like usually a shot glass, or, build like some kind of splint, like Band-Aids or something. You've got like a strip of Band-Aid that you cut and wrap around their legs to keep their feet underneath them. Sometimes if you catch it early, you can get it corrected. Honestly, I usually just call those birds out because it's just not worth it, in my opinion, to work on a maybe solution for them. And I usually have plenty hatched. So, it'd be the same kind of thing with button quail, I guess, but trying to hold them and get them to, I don't know how you can do it, honestly. I mean, it's the same concept. You just got to find something that would work for something that tiny. Amy says, put a marble under the first cup as a space for water drainage. So yeah, okay. I think what you're talking about is I usually sub water my tomatoes from the when I get them once I get them started. You have to water pretty on top until they get started and get up and going. But once their first true leaves come in, I just water from the bottom. I just basically I have them in a what do you call it, nursery tray kind of thing. It's a big side plastic thing, and they're usually solo cups. That's what I use with holes punched in the bottom of it, and I just fill it up with water about like that, and they all soak it up, and that's how I water them. But it's the same concept. Joe Sandy says, Verna, they are in containers, large raised beds. I don't know if you have the resources to do this, but you might take out maybe that much of the soil and replace it, or maybe even a little more and replace it and see if that fixes your blight problem too. Or like I said, go with some hybrids that are resistant to it for a year or two. Verna says, Sandy, I'm talking about a small container, like a 5-gallon bucket. Yeah, I can't imagine trying to grow a beefsteak tomato in a 5-gallon bucket. I've tried doing them in containers much larger than that, and it just never works. Andy says, if it's buck season, do they get in trouble for getting a doe if it has antlers? No. Well, we don't have a specific buck season. We do have, like in Missouri, in most places in Missouri anyway, there are some areas where there are antlerless restrictions and things like that, but where I'm hunting, there's no restrictions like that. So when you buy a tag, it's an any deer tag. You can shoot a buck or a doe. And then you can get additional tags that would be like doe only tags, antlerless deer tag. Joe Sandy says, I heard from M.I. Gardner and also the Rusted Garden that blight comes also through the winds, not just the soil. So it's kind of a losing battle, it seems. Yeah, I mean, it can be, but, it does harbor in the soil too. So, I mean, that could be some of it. Amy says, put 1 aspirin in the cup crushed up in the dirt when you start the seed every 3 weeks after planting, with a couple aspirin in the hole. Water with 2 aspirin per watering can. Yeah, I haven't gone quite that, but I have tried crushing up aspirin in there when I plant them, all that kind of stuff, and watered with crushed aspirin a couple of times, and it just didn't seem to have any effect on the blight itself. Apparently, though, what aspirin does is, I can't remember what it is. There's a chemical in aspirin that is very similar to like the stress chemical in the plants. So whenever the plants get stressed, they put off this chemical which produces things to help them get over the stress. So the thought is, I'm kind of explaining this kind of simplistic. It's not exact. You can look it up and get a better explanation for it probably. But basically, it's the idea that it just kind of makes them think they're stressed. So they produce these protective, chemicals or whatever they are that would kind of help them get through that stuff a little bit more. So, I mean, I get the theory behind it, but it hasn't worked for the blight that we've gotten here. But I haven't gone quite that, like every 2 weeks or anything like that. So we'll see. Maybe I'll try it again. Buck says, Amy, if you use 2 solo cups, they aren't really solo anymore. Verna says, cabbage moths are bad here. Oh, yeah, they're terrible here, too. I don't even grow brassicas anymore because they just get destroyed by cabbage moths every time. Kind of like we had squash bugs really bad for a while, and I didn't grow squash for a couple of years. And then last year, we did put some squash in, and they did all right. I didn't get just completely destroyed by squash bugs or vine borers. Those are bad too. But Buck says, I love fried rabbit processed 2 weeks early. So yeah, I mean, I've fried wild rabbit before and turned out okay. But every time I've tried to fry domestic rabbit, it just comes out a little tough and a little dry. Maybe you need to brine it first. That might help with it, but it's just so lean that I just don't think it fries up very well. But that's just my opinion. Buck says, gypsy moths wear plaid. It makes them even more unsightly. Yeah. Verna says, yes, you can get blight from nurseries. Well, I started all my own seeds, so it didn't come from a nursery, but I don't know. Yeah, David wants to know what winter crops I grow, if any. I don't bother with winter crops. I've never had good luck with them. It seems like it's like, we were like 60 degrees last week, which is not terribly hot, but it's still pretty warm. We're 60 degrees today. And then like 2 days from now, we're going to have like 30s, and that would, I mean, even for winter crops, that makes it tough on them. And it just seems like our seasons change so drastically. Like it's just hot, 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 a little bit cool for a couple of weeks, and then cold. It's just, it doesn't ever work out. David says, I agree. I've never had any luck with splayed legs. Yeah, I've had very little luck. It's a lot of effort for usually no return. Andy says, for tomatoes, I use Epsom salt with eggshells when I'm having a problem with them. Yeah, I mean, that's not, I don't know that the eggshells do a whole lot for them. I know there's calcium in them, but it's not in a form that the tomatoes can take up, and it takes a long time for those to break down. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't know that it's really that necessary. But Epsom salt is good. I've heard of using that too. It's pretty high in, is it potassium? Is that it? I can't remember. George says, silver beets family, carrots, radishes, spinach family, bok choy family, potatoes, and sweet potatoes are good winter crops. Yeah, they would be. Buck says, Andy Rabbit, in Michigan, any season where you can take a buck deer, you can also take a doe deer. Yeah, I don't know that there's any place where there's restrictions on taking does. If there are any restrictions, it's usually on bucks, but I don't know. Andy Rabbit says, I don't hunt, so I don't know. I thought there was a no doe time. Not that I know of. I'm not familiar with any of them. Bill says, I had a boss that killed a 10-point doe, and the game warden had to get guidance on whether to charge him for killing a doe during buck-only days. Oh, really? You have buck-only days there? That's crazy. Buck says, the buck tag can be used on a doe, but if you shoot something with antlers, you need an antlered tag. If you can't tell it had antlers, you didn't hunt legally. Yeah, well, there are some where there's antlerless, restrictions. You can only shoot antlerless deer. And then, there's some where their antlers have to be so big before you can shoot them too. We don't have that restriction here. But there are some counties in Missouri that have those. But I don't know of any that say you can't shoot a doe. Amy says, I have dinosaur kale growing still. Can I ferment it, chop it up like sauerkraut? Chopped up like sauerkraut. You might be able to. I think the best thing to do with kale is when you cook it in like bacon grease or coconut oil or something like that, because it makes it a whole lot easier to slide it out of the pan and into the trash. I do not like kale, but that's just me. I don't like kale at all. But yeah, try chopping up and ferment it. See how it goes. I don't know. Why not? Bob Cole says, never seen a female deer, mule deer, or elk with antlers. Only the boys have them. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I said, it's pretty rare, but it does happen from time to time where you'll have a doe that's antlered. I mean, it happens. You probably, I mean, how would you know if you just saw the deer at a distance walking along with antlers? You just assume it's a buck. I mean, how would you know? But yeah, it's not very common. It's pretty rare. I've never actually seen one in person. I've just seen pictures and the stories like from the conservation department and stuff like that. Joe Sandy says, vine borers are terrible here. Everybody says zucchini grow prolific for them. I can barely get 2 or 3 zucchini if I'm lucky. Yeah, the vine borers are rough. And a couple of things you can do. You can use BT. What is that? I can't remember the name. It's BT is the abbreviation for it. You can use that, and that will get them. But you can, put it in a syringe and basically just inspect your plants every day. When you see little, you know what they look like probably, but it looks like a little hole, like a drill. Like there's like sawdust coming out of this little hole. That's the vine borers. Shoot it into that stem a couple of times, and it'll take care of them. You can also take like a razor blade and kind of slice that stem open real easy, kind of peel it apart and dig those grubs out. But you got to stay on top of it. You got to watch it pretty close. Ed says, pickle them with the rest that we pickle, grape size, and they are not pullets. Oh, you're talking about the eggs. You're talking about, can you pickle those grape size eggs? I don't know. I always just toss them out because a lot of times those tiny little eggs like that, they don't have a yolk in them, or there's something else going on with them, and I just throw them out. But I guess you could try it and see. Verna says, yeah, she's saying the same thing. You can pickle them, but they're usually just egg whites with no yolk. What's the fun of that, right? I mean, I don't like pickled eggs anyway, but what's the fun of a egg with no yolk? The yolk's the best part. George says, funny that you guys on the other side of the world have the same bug problems that we have here growing our fruit and vegetables. Yeah, I mean, it's not that different. Everybody has the same problems, right? I mean, you may have slightly different bugs, but you have the same kinds of bugs. Like you probably have some kind of squash bug. You kind of have some kind of, all those things. It's not that much different from place to place. George says, cooking kale, LOL. Yeah. Teresa says, no kale for me, but I like spinach. I like spinach too. 340 wants to know, what's your favorite caliber to hunt with? I use a 30-06. I've got a pretty nice 30-06 rifle I bought several years ago, and that's what I use. I actually I bought a nice 30-06 rifle, and I put a loopholed 50 millimeter reticle scope on it. The scope cost more than the rifle did, but and that thing's a tack driver. It's a great rifle, so that's what I use. Joe Sandy says, Chris, that was funny. Good. I'm glad I made you laugh. Buck says, I heard that you have to massage kale with coarse salt before cooking to help it get over the bitterness. I just think just grow something else. I mean, I don't bother with kale at all. Don't like it. So just don't mess with it. I just grow things I like. Buck says, but then it's just expensive spinach. Yep. Yeah. David says the best way to serve kale is on someone else's plate. I agree. There we go. But I knew somebody would get this. Buck says BT is Bacillus thuringiensis. I don't know, something. You can figure it out. But it's a natural occurring bacteria, and it targets specifically like caterpillars and worms. That's it. Like grubs, that kind of thing. It's only specific to them. It's a naturally occurring thing. So, and it works. Joe Sandy says, anybody try to make kale chips? No, but that reminds me, there's a comedian. What is his name? See if I can find it real quick. Yeah, this is him. Tommy Ryman. Look up his kale chips thing. He is hilarious. And that kale chips deal, he's talking, it's so funny. You got to look it up and watch it. He also has one of the funniest things I've ever heard when he broke his collarbone. So Tommy Ryman, that's who you want to look up. Look up that comedian, watch his stand up on breaking his collarbone and the one on kale chips. They're both pretty funny. So Bob Cole's posting it too, what BT is. Amy says, based on the conversation, what's the difference between beer nuts and deer nuts? Beer nuts are $1.49 and deer nuts are under $1. I've seen that before. That's funny. Teresa says, I made spinach chips. It might be all right. Steven says, put foil around the stems for squash, zucchini, etc. for pests. Yeah, for vine borers, that kind of works. It can work. The only problem I have is if they do manage to get in there, you don't see it because it's wrapped in foil. But for the most part, it does a good job keeping the vine borers off, which are a moth, actually. They just lay their eggs on the vine and all that. But it doesn't do anything for squash bugs. Amy says, starting the winter basement garden with pet grass for rabbits and spinach. Well, nice. George says, you guys should grow herbs. You can make great pestos, oregano, basil, mint, etc. I do grow herbs. Basil is one of my favorite. I love dill. That's a really good one as well. I've got oregano growing outside. I've got thyme. Actually, I think my thyme might have died, so I don't have that anymore. I was killing thyme. Yeah, I like herbs. I like fresh herbs quite a bit. My wife doesn't care for them as much. She likes basil. I love basil. Like Genovese basil, not the Thai basil. Thai basil is okay, but the Italian basil is the way to go. Cilantro is one of my favorites. And I was talking to somebody, and this might be a good thing to do too. You might try this. I haven't actually tried it. Who was that? Oh, Dale from Dale's Quail. He said to control pests, he just plants onions everywhere. Like all over the place, all over his garden. Says it keeps the pests away. Onions and garlic. Who knew? Amy says, ooh, loophole. Those are really, I don't know what that is. I don't know what we're talking about. Those are really nice. I don't know what we're talking about. Amy says, I have sprouts going now. Or Verna says that. Verna says, I have sprouts going now. I must have missed a comment somewhere. Verna says, best time to harvest kale is in the cool weather like we're having now. Yeah, or like I said, just don't grow it. But oh yeah, we're 5 minutes after the hour. We got to wrap this up. I got to go. I got to go to work in the morning, so I got to wrap it up. I got carried away. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Let me get through a couple more comments and then we'll wrap this one up. Thanks for the heads up, Verna. Buck says, grow kale for the rabbits. They love it. That and Cheez-Its. Like, man, I don't think I'd feed them Cheez-Its, but yeah, I'm sure they do love them. And Amy wants to know how often do you feed greens to your rabbits, Chris? Very rarely. I mean, occasionally I'll give them something, but not very often. Joe Sandy says, I must be the only living human who can't stand basil. I can't imagine not liking basil. I love it. It smells so good. It tastes so good. But there's different kinds of basil, so you might try different kinds and see. And they're significantly different. George says, onions and garlic don't work for us to keep pests away. We only end up with lots of onions and garlic. Well, there's nothing wrong with that either. But Berta says, everybody have a blessed night. I agree. George says, bye, everyone. Be careful out there. And thanks, Chris. Well, thank you, guys. Yeah, I got to wrap this one up. It was good to see you guys. Like I said, I should be back next Thursday. I don't see any reason why not. And hopefully I'll try to get a video out for you guys this weekend in between hunting and all that. But until then, we'll see you guys. And as always, God bless.